Well, hello, gorgeous. You come here often?
Handsome.
Hey, I do. Welcome to another episode of Around the Block Talk. I'm your host, Los, and today I have the honor of having the super talented LadySpeech, who is an amazing artist. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Lady, please go ahead and tell them a little bit about who you are and your amazingness.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I am a burlesque dancer. I am a poet. I am an MC. I am a host. I am an activist, an artivist. I am a nanny. I am I write curriculum. I am a teacher. I do all kinds of lovely things in my community.
Well, thank you for joining us today, for sure. Today you're going to be helping us tell a very important component about marketing.
Yes.
Storytelling.
Oh yeah, baby.
Right?
Tell your stories.
So here's the thing, is, everybody out here in the world of business and having your own brand, or even if you're an artist, one of the main things is that you have to market yourself.
That's
but
right.
In today's world, people really don't like salespeople, right?
No, they don't.
They see a sales pitch a mile away and they'll ignore you like the plague.
We're tired of being sold shit.
Yes, we are. So having that said, the only way that in today's world that you can actually get into people's minds and hearts, and then eventually possibly their wallets, is going to be through storytelling.
That's right.
No one wants to hear you pitch. They want you to offer. Tell them your story, who you are and what you're about. So today we're gonna have LadySpeech break down how to tell a good story and the important components of it. So LadySpeech, what do you think are the main key principles of how to tell a good story? What would be your first point?
I think the first point would be your motivation for telling a good story. Why do you want to tell the story? What compels you to tell a good story? Being from African American and with some Native American ancestry, I come from a cultural background that is really strong in storytelling and the oral tradition.
Okay.
And there was always a motivation behind the telling of the story. So if it was education, if it is to spread the accolades of or the achievements of what someone has done, or if it's to entertain, there's always a point to telling the story. So what's your motivation? Why do you want to even speak on, someone's stories or your own stories?
The why. And that's very important because, there's a million stories to tell, but if you don't really have a why, and in most people's cases when they own a business, it's their business's why, right? So if they're a restaurant, their why is to tell about their restaurant. If they are a construction business, it's about why they do it. What is, the why? And
your why will always be able to provide you with content. Your why will you will always be able to draw on that when you're stuck. Your why will always be able to point you in a new direction or point you in the direction that you need to go. So if you don't have a strong why, if you don't have a strong motivation, you're not going to have a strong anchor. You're not going to have a strong base. Like your why is the foundation to the house that you're building.
That's very important. So then how would you say that is represented in your work and in your content that you put out there? What's your why?
My why is to educate people about the injustices of the world. My why is to, even my name, LadySpeech, I chose that name because silence almost killed me. So my why to telling stories is to make sure that I live. My why to telling stories is to make sure that other people live, that other people's stories are heard, that the marginalized voice is heard. My why is to educate people about things that have gone on, and my why is to heal people, to heal myself first and foremost, and then also to offer healing to other people.
Oh, that's fantastic. So then, having that said, your why is really to be an activist of life and humanity and culture. What is the second point to telling a good story?
I would say after you know the why of telling the good stories is then you get to having good stories, your content. After you understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, now it's time to grab the stories. Now it's time to create the stories. So once you know your motivation, once you have that foundation built, then you can start building those walls. And the walls are the stories. The walls are the content. So either creating stories, generating new stories from yourself and your collaboration with the muse, or it is getting stories, like coming from a culture that has a strong oral tradition. A lot of this is, getting stories that have already been told and make sure that they continue to be told by memorizing them, and by, and then telling them to other people. So getting your stories, getting your content, I think would be the second aspect to this.
And whether you're a restaurant, whether you're an artist, whether you are a consultant of some sort, you really, if you want to tell the story is of you, of what you're doing, or of people that you help out in that case. That's where you go and find those stories, right? You need good stories. You just can't tell, what you did, what you had for breakfast, and then expect that to really be successful. You really have to give them something juicy, right?
Exactly.
And you have to look around you for those stories.
Exactly.
Right?
And again, your why ties into that, because then you can take and go into different aspects of it. There's thousands of stories everywhere. So even about this block, you could tell the story of this block. You could tell the story of that rock on the block. You could tell the story of that branch on the block, of that tree that's on the block. There's millions of different angles. So your why will help you to figure out your content and help you to get into those angles and to be able to distill your main points or your main stories out.
Very important, very important. So then you have to first know the why, then to find the stories, and then the third point, what would you say?
I would say is to find and know and curate your audience. So after you know the reason why, after you have your content, who are you telling these stories to? What kind of stories do they want to hear? What kind of stories do they need to hear? Because those are two different things. People want things, and there's a need to address that, and then people need things, and so there's a need to address that. Once you know your audience, once you cultivate your audience, once you curate your audience, that'll help you in the tweaking of the way you deliver your stories, what content, you will get to know what they want to hear, So to draw from cultural aspects, the Jali or the griot back in the day, the traveling storyteller, would travel to different villages in that region and tell many different stories. And a lot of those stories would be the exact same stories, but they would be told differently depending on the village that they were visiting at that time. So if this was more of an agricultural village, maybe the stories are more paid attention to the agricultural piece or the peaceful piece or the building piece. If they were visiting a more warrior tribe, maybe they focus on more of the action. Maybe they tell stories that center around the wars and the battles and things of that nature. So after you understand why you're doing it, after you get your content and your stories, the story that you're telling, then it's about understanding who is attracted to you, who is attracted to your stories, what they're attracted to your stories, what in your stories are they attracted to, and curating what they need and what they like to hear.
So in what you're saying is if you're a business owner of whatever you sell, whatever you do, art, music, if you sell a product or a service, now it's really knowing your demographic and knowing who to tell the right story. So,
exactly.
So if you're a dance studio and you have a few different types of clients, the hip-hop students, the ballet, and the jazz, well, you're going to tell stories formatted, if you will, to the jazz dancer. If you have a restaurant where you may have great drinks, you're known for being your bar and your Italian food, let's say, you're going to now tell stories for the drinkers, right? Then you're going to tell stories for the food eaters, right?
Yes.
So in your case, with your business and what you do, how do you separate that? How do you format that story for the different demographics that you have?
For instance, I do the story that I tell for the people who support my burlesque is a slightly different story for the people that I tell to the people who support my activism and my artivism. The motivation for each is actually the same. They're both rooted in the same, but the audience is a little bit different. So with my burlesque, the story tends to include a lot more sex positive things. The story tends to include a lot more personal things because my burlesque is very much rooted in my own healing. My burlesque is very much rooted in my own sex positivity and my own healing and my own survival and into being a thriver. So a lot of when I tell that story and when I'm looking to curate that audience, I tend to include a lot of those things. Now, when it comes to my activism or my artivism, I tend to focus more on my triumph and my victory, the victory over my struggles. I tend to focus on a lot more of the things that I use to cope or to win or to get over or to to advance. I tend to focus on more of those types of things. So the root for all of my stories is basically the same. My motivation for everything I do is the same, but the audience for everything I do is different, even though there's an overlap in some things.
Yeah.
And the stories that I sell are slightly different for the different things that I do.
So you're reformatting the story.
Yes.
The same meat and potatoes, the same chunks and main premises, just slightly
It's
tailored.
slightly different. This audience, you know, they might need this meat and potatoes prepared, steak and potatoes. This audience might need a casserole. This audience might
Now
need
I'm
a
hungry.
burger.
Now I'm hungry.
And some fries.
We're eating after this.
Yes. You know, it's all meat and potatoes. The base is all meat and potatoes, but we kind of serve it up different ways depending on who is eating at my table.
So definitely, I know what kind of story I want next, and that's going to be a story in my belly.
Yes.
So having that said, we've gotten through 3 fantastic points
Yes.
That make up a good story,
Yes.
right? The 4th, and I think is probably the cherry on top, that really puts all those other 3 aspects together. And what is that 4th step?
I would say the 4th step is after you've got all of those, because all of those things are kind of philosophical and esoteric. The meat and potatoes of it is knowing that a good story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's the technical part of it.
Okay.
So that's like the pie crust of all of this. That's what holds everything together. So in telling a good story, you need to make sure that you, after you have all of those other things situated and all those other elements in place, it is about having a good beginning to a story, having a good, because you know that's going to draw them into you, that's going to make them listen to you, having a good middle, because that's going to keep them there, a climax, something that we're building towards, something, you know, an obstacle that we are solving, and then a good ending to the story. And once you have those 3, you know, technicalities in place, then you'll keep people coming back to you, you'll keep people looking for your story, you'll keep people listening to your story, you'll keep people engaged with your story.
And that's very pivotal, because I think, you know, you could have your motivation, right? You could have the story outlined in terms of what you want to say, in terms of the stories that you find, the stories that you collect, and then you have the component of knowing your audience. But then all of that has to be put together before the story is done. But then when you're actually putting the story together, that's where you need the 3 parts, so that people can warm up to the characters or to you or to the premise. Then they get confronted with the challenge or the obstacle, and then afterwards it tends to be the happy ending, right?
Exactly.
The solution.
Exactly.
And in for the businesses and artists and whatnot, entrepreneurs, you are all solving a problem. You are offering content and a solution. So if you're an artist of a certain genre, you're solving the problem for the people who demand that type of genre. If you're a type of service industry business, you may be solving how to fix a certain problem. For food and restaurants, you're solving hunger, right? So you're solving a problem, and that's how you need to be able to tell it through your 3-part structure story.
Exactly.
I think that's beautiful. What would you say as departing words for everyone in terms of, they know all this stuff now, they got this valuable information, what next?
You know what? I think that one of the good things is then you turn into, what do you like? What turns you on as a consumer? What turns you on as someone who receives stories every day? What are some of the products? What are some of the restaurants? What are some of the things that you like? And really sitting with that, sitting with why you gravitate towards certain products, why you gravitate towards certain businesses, why you gravitate towards certain services, why you gravitate towards certain people who deliver a service. Kind of looking at why you do those things and taking that into account when you're offering a service, when you're offering a business, and using yourself to study. I think a lot of times we forget that, you know, when we own businesses or we offer services, we forget that we too are humans as well, and we consume things and we offer things. So use yourself as that test subject. What turns you on? What stories make you excited? What stories, and what are those elements that make you excited? So kind of, you know, bringing those into your own space and utilizing those things as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on another episode of Around the Block Talk.
Thank you. It's been a nice conversation.
I think you gave some very valuable information that people tend to not think about, but in today's world, it is very much needed, you know, because of the fact that people don't want that sales rep. They don't want that pitch. they want to know a story,
Yeah.
right? So
And it's about connection. That's the thing about storytelling offers that, you know, I think when we frame our advertising in that capacity, it offers a connection and authenticity. Telling a story is going to bring a little bit more of your creativity out. Telling a story tends to be a little bit more personal.
Yes,
And
very
that's
much
what
so.
people are looking for. And I think that'll make people, support you long term. So
I love it. I love it. So there you have it. In order to be authentic, to really come across to people, and to be able to get into their hearts and into their minds without being the sales rep or the pitch, tell a good story. Today we learned 4 key aspects of that, okay? Make sure that you have a motivation, your why. Have good stories to tell of yourself, your journey, and your clients or the people you serve. And then have a good understanding of your demographic, right?
Yeah.
Know your audience. Who is it for? Format it to those people. Change the story a little bit with that when you are in front of those particular demographics. And fourth is to tell a 3-part story: the beginning, the middle, and end. I think that people are definitely going to take this knowledge and really use it to their advantage, and you've made them better storytellers for it.
thank you. I hope so.
LadySpeech, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you
You've
for
been
having me.
amazing. I think the knowledge you gave is super, super important and valuable for people to listen to and check out.
Thank you.
If people want to stay in contact with you and stay up with your amazingness, where is the best place for them to find you and reach you at?
Well, first off, I have a website, so www.ladyspeech.com.
Okay.
You can also find me on YouTube under LadySpeech Sankova. I'm on Snapchat under Magic LadySpeech.
Yeah.
I'm also on Instagram as LadySpeech, and I have an artist page on Facebook under LadySpeech. So
There you go. So make sure you go ahead and follow and catch up with LadySpeech. She's an amazing artist. And if you like this video and found value in it, please like and share and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can get more marketing advice that works. Until next time, I'm your host, Los, and we'll see you on the next episode of Around the Block Talk.